What is up, guys? MB38 Gaming. Today I'm going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, which takes place between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So there's a lot of stuff that you need to know before we get into this review. So basically, one of Star Wars' most popular characters, if not the most popular character, is Han Solo. The badass smuggler who cared about Luke and Leia, eventually grew up to have a son, Kylo Ren. He owns one of the coolest ships, has one of the coolest sidekicks, Chewbacca, and has one of the most memorable trademarks of the entire saga. And, in my opinion, yes, Han definitely shot first.
Yes, I bet you have.
So, during the release of Last Jedi in 2017, fans did not like it, including myself. I thought it had major plot points that didn't make sense. The story was kind of thin. The characters were just unrecognizable, old and new. Everything about it just felt, well, it didn't feel like Star Wars. And how did the writer and director of the film, Rian Johnson, react to this? He decided to go on Twitter and call the fans of the saga man, babies, and assholes. Now, two things. One, don't try to do that on social media, because what ends up happening? You end up becoming what you claim the fans to be. Rian Johnson, he's acting like the real child here, to be honest. He could have just ignored them, but no, he fed into them. And the second thing, you don't want to insult your customers. These are people who love Star Wars with all their hearts. Old fans and new. When you insult your customers, they don't want to buy anything from your brand. Wow, crazy, right? But in all seriousness, yeah, that was a big mistake on Rian Johnson's part. And what ended up happening was Solo was doing poorly in the box office. It costed about $300 million to make and only made like $392 million. So not that much. Like nowadays, movies, they make like twice as much money as it took to make them. And things were actually looking pretty good. An origin story for Han Solo, it could be interesting. It was being directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. They're responsible for making some of my favorite movies of all time, such as 21 Jump Street, the Lego Movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and one of their more recent ones, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which won an Academy Award. They're basically known for making good movies. So why would you fire them? Yeah, they were mostly done with the film, but then Kathleen Kennedy, the CEO of Lucasfilm, decided to fire them. And we had Ron Howard as the director of the film. And, well, you have these two amazing artists, two amazing film directors and writers. Why would you fire them? It seemed like a pretty poor decision. But anyway, Ron Howard directed the film, and we got the first ever Star Wars film to lose money. Plus, no one really thought that the actor playing Han Solo could really pull it off, and he actually does good for the most part. The thing is, like, it's not really a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford's Han Solo. So it starts off saying in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but instead of the text crawl when the Star Wars logo appears and you hear that music, instead we get more words explaining how the Empire is in control. There's mob bosses, and currently Han Solo is on this planet called Corellia, and it's run by this crime boss called Lady Proxima, who hates sunlight, who burns in the sunlight. And he has a girlfriend named Kira. Han Solo stole this thing called coaxium, this mineral, I guess, and he's going to try to use it to buy his way off the planet so that he can go off to the far ends of the galaxy to start a new life with Kira. But before he does that, Lady Proxima kidnaps him, and we do get a little bit of a funny moment there. So Lady Proxima says like Han Solo owes her money and he has to pay it back. And Han Solo like tells her to let him go or else, and he picks up a rock. He's like, I have this thermal detonator that I just armed. And yes, he actually does click his tongue. It's actually just a rock, and she actually calls him out for it, and her voice just makes it funny.
That's a rock.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. And you just made a clicking sound with your mouth.
And he throws the rock at the window, and sunlight burns Lady Proxima. Kira and Han engage in this chase scene, which is okay. And then they get to this space station. They use the coaxium, but before Kira can get through the gate, nope, she's captured by a bunch of criminals, and she tells Han to go off without her. And so he does. And he sees that the Empire is recruiting. They need more soldiers to fight for the Empire. And he decides, what better way to become a pilot than become a part of the army? And he goes to the recruiting booth. The guy asks for his name, and Han Solo says he doesn't have a last name. He's been alone most of his life. And that's how he gets his name.
I don't have people. I'm alone.
Solo?
Do we need that? What did that add? Like, that Solo not being his real name. What did that add to the story? Han Solo is enlisted in the army, and he meets 3 soldiers who are actually criminals trying to steal a ship so they can get more money. And eventually Han Solo figures out what they're doing, and he tries to join them. They say no. He keeps pestering them until Beckett, the leader of this small group, his partners are Val and Rio, pretty interesting characters, and he reports to the commanding officer that Solo is actually a spy. So they decide to throw him into this pit so the beast can eat him. And what's the beast? It turns out it's Chewbacca. And I really like this introduction to Chewbacca. Like, we see him on Kashyyyk in Revenge of the Sith, but you can tell he's been through some turmoil. His race is probably dealing with so much stuff. And, he has to eat humans to survive. That's kind of dark. And eventually, Han tries talking with Chewbacca. It doesn't work. And then he tries speaking Wookiee. So eventually, Han Solo and Chewie escape, and Beckett thinks that they could be useful. If Han was able to tame the beast, who knows? He could help on their mission. And then, well, they were in the mud when they were fighting in the pit. And so we get a scene of both of them showering together. Doesn't that sound very great? Who asked for a shower scene between Han Solo and Chewbacca? Does that sound like Star Wars? Is that something that needed to be added? Did Ron Howard just want a shower scene, like just because, for almost no reason? So they explain that there's this train full of coaxium that's heading their way, and they need to get all the coaxium so that they can get to this crime boss, Dryden Voss, in order to pay off their debts. And it doesn't go well. It fails, actually. So earlier they mentioned this crime group called Enfys Nest, and I thought they were really cool. Their introduction was very menacing. The combat was pretty good. The action. They have pretty cool looking costumes. The distorted voice on Enfys Nest, really good. So Val and Rio end up being killed, and Han Solo has to let go of the coaxium in order to survive, along with Chewie and Beckett. And Beckett explains that Dryden Voss will be mad, and that he has to report to the crime syndicate that he's working for, Crimson Dawn. Now, who is the leader of Crimson Dawn? You'll find out later in this video. So Dryden Voss owns this little space yacht, apparently. And we see that Kira is actually there. Apparently, all these years, she joined Crimson Dawn and Dryden Voss. And it doesn't make her any more interesting. So Dryden Voss is mad at Han Solo and Beckett, but they offer up a solution. They would go to this planet called Kessel, where the Kessel mines are. And that actually leads to the Kessel Run, which is actually hinted in A New Hope.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's a ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
Kira agrees to go along with them, and they have to get a ship. And Kira tells them about Lando. And he's played by Donald Glover in this movie. So they meet Lando in this bar, who's the owner of the Millennium Falcon. Han decides to make a bet with Lando. If he wins, then he gets to keep the Millennium Falcon. But of course, Lando decides to cheat, and he wins the bet. Then we meet Lando's partner, L337. Oh god. So this droid is absolutely annoying. Every single time I see this thing, I just want to shoot it with a blaster. Luckily, someone does it later in the movie. And she apparently sees a droid that cares deeply about droid rights. Droid rights. Like, do we need, like, politics in Star Wars? Think about it. In a film involving aliens, space battles, lightsabers, basically people using telekinesis, do we need politics in this movie? No, we don't. Lando agrees to take Beckett, Kira, Han, and Chewie to Kessel so they can get the coaxium, and in return, Lando gets about 25% of the pay. Apparently, surrounding Kessel is this dark cloud, and eventually Han Solo is going to go through the Kessel Run and try to go through this cloud. They sneak into the Kessel mines. L337 decides to free all the slaves there, and she says, "Rebellion!" And I'm like, oh god, please, someone just shoot that thing. Oh, thank god. They barely manage to escape, and Lando tells Han and Chewie to pilot the Falcon. We see Han and Chewie in the Falcon, the music playing. It is fun seeing Chewie and Han in the Falcon. You get a sense that, yes, these are the same people we see in A New Hope, Empire, Return of the Jedi. They really captured that very well. Eventually, there's this black hole and this giant alien monster, which I thought was pretty cool. They do this special maneuver in order to get out of there just in time. They meet up with Dryden Voss. Lando, he tells to Han, "I hate you." And Han says back, "I know." We see that Enfys Nest was waiting for them. And, oh my god, are they going to have a big confrontation? Are they going to have a big brawl? No, it turns out that Enfys Nest is just... she's not a villain. She's just a misunderstood hero. Come on. Sometimes we just want our villains to be villains. Like Thanos, or Joker, or Voldemort. Eventually, Beckett betrays Han Solo and captures Chewbacca. And Dryden Voss fights with Kira and Han Solo. Kira kills Dryden Voss, and Kira tells Han Solo to go on without him. Live your life. I can't leave here, otherwise Crimson Dawn will kill me. Or something like that. They'll never stop until they find me. And of course, Han Solo leaves. Meanwhile, Kira decides to talk to the boss of Crimson Dawn, which is Darth Maul. And it's okay. Like, the fan service, it's fine. But at the same time, he's just been reduced to a mere cameo. When I feel like, maybe we could have had him in the room, except Dryden Voss, which could have been a little better. Darth Maul is just way underused. And also, Rebels was released before this movie, and in Star Wars Rebels, we see the final fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, and Darth Maul dies. So there's no point to this. We know that he's going to lose his crime syndicate, we know he's going to die. What's the point? It's just a bunch of fan service that's kind of pointless. But again, it is a little cool seeing Darth Maul. The design on his horns, the black cloak, his red lightsaber. We see that he has robotic legs as a result of Obi-Wan cutting him in half. Eventually, Han Solo has a confrontation with Beckett. Beckett is continuously talking until, nope, surprise, Han shoots first. And I really like that callback to that trademark. Really good. Eventually we see Chewbacca and Han Solo on the Millennium Falcon. Music's playing. They explained how they're going to Tatooine because there's this crime boss that has a really good deal for us. And eventually the credits roll. And that was Solo. Not a good movie. In my opinion, the main problem with this film is that it's unnecessary. It doesn't need to be in the Star Wars saga. If you completely take it out, it will not change a thing in the story. It doesn't add anything to Han Solo's character that makes him better. And what it does add is it doesn't really have any influence. So again, this film just feels like another Disney cash grab trying to milk on nostalgia and our love for Han Solo. Some good things are there, like the actor playing Han Solo. He was actually pretty good for the most part. And it's fun seeing them in the Falcon. Chewbacca's pretty good. The Kessel Run is okay. And the CG and the costume design's pretty good. Enfys Nest was cool at first, but ruined. Beckett was a pretty interesting character. But again, everything else, such superfluous scenes and superfluous things like L337, the shower scene with Han Solo, the origin of Han Solo's name, Dryden Voss, and whatever the hell this is. They don't feel like they belong in Star Wars. This movie is just bland, uninteresting. It doesn't add anything to Han Solo's character. What it does add, it doesn't really influence him, like I said before. So, this movie is just vastly disappointing and a very bad addition to the Star Wars saga. I'm going to give this film a 4.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching.